Welcome in to the latest episode of Betting the Pitch, the European Soccer Edition. I am your host, real_G Warner. We are 28 and 9, 76% on our best bets on the season long, forever running Betting the Pitch Soccer Network. I'm the real_G Warner on Instagram, Patreon, Twitter, and on YouTube. I'm going to tweet this out so everyone knows we are live. And come on in. We are discussing today a full week of cup action. So for those of you not in the soccer sphere, like I am every day, it feels like there are cup competitions that you might have seen maybe in the NBA most recently with their own cup, where it's like separate from the league competitions, but another opportunity for teams to win in a playoff type of format. And I guess it really gives a lot of the smaller clubs with the lesser budgets a chance to potentially win a trophy because all you got to do is beat the team ahead of you. You don't just have to beat every promoted side by a million goals every time you play, like the Real Madrids, Barcelona's, Liverpool's, and such. On this episode, I'm going to go through England, the EFL Carabao Cup, the Copa del Rey in Spain, Coppa Italia in Italy, the Coupe de France in, you guessed it, France, and the DFB Pokal in Germany. And then we'll come out with the best bet, try to improve on that 28 and 9 record. And then I figured I'd wear a Roma scarf because I don't think I have any gear from the teams playing this week. There are some of these competitions that are spaced out and are playing later in the month and that don't have lines that are available yet. So I guess we'll see what happens when we get there. Probably we'll have another episode for midweek action when the remainder of the cup competitions are going on. But everything's tweeted, so I'm gonna get into it. And of course, if you are not a member of my Patreon, check it out, patreon.com/real_G Warner. Already have college basketball plays out there for tonight. And of course, if you're not subscribed, Betting the Pitch on Apple Podcasts and on Spotify, 5-star reviews would be huge. And if you leave a 5-star review that says "Give us a props episode," A_Schnicker and I will add to our already released Super Bowl episode with a props episode as we get closer to the big game. Okay, we'll start in England since that is generally where the money is. And let me make sure I can find where I was. And we'll start. So unfortunately, with the managing of a million competitions, I actually missed the first legs of Newcastle, Arsenal, and of Liverpool and Tottenham. So these are the second round or second legs of the Carabao Cup, EFL Cup final or semifinals to reach the final, which will be played on a neutral site, I believe, at Wembley Stadium in London. Right now, we have Newcastle who won 2-0 at Arsenal. Another disappointing result. Mikel Arteta a few weeks ago or a month ago was very disappointed about the chances he missed, but he's really seemingly great to his locker room, dressing room, whatever you call it, because he's always defensive of and really mad at the referees, it seems. Newcastle are a little bit in a funk right now compared to how well they were playing. But with a 2-0 lead and at home, they're in pretty good shape. Newcastle currently a quarter goal underdog at home with more juice than Arsenal. Totals 2 3/4 juice all the way to under. And in terms of two advanced numbers, we have Arsenal 4-1 odds, hence being 2-0 down and on aggregate away from home. I don't believe we have road goals to count as extra. So 2-0 Arsenal will send this to extra time or any sort of two goal advantage for Arsenal away from home. Newcastle minus 565, so 565 to win 100 US dollars to advance. So they are clearly heavy favorites. And I think the big question is when we already know a first result and kind of know what Arsenal need in this matchup, it's really good for them to know. It's tough that they're away from home and also tough that Newcastle come off two straight losses in the English Premier League at home where they'd previously been so dominant. But I think the dilemma here is if you're looking to back Newcastle as a quarter goal underdog, they are celebrating at the final whistle when they lose by a single goal. So you could certainly have some value here getting Newcastle as an underdog, though they probably were. I think they were a half of a goal underdog against Arsenal when they beat them at home earlier this season. But ultimately, there's a big problem where I never want a team that's celebrating at the final whistle when they're not covering the spread or winning my bet. So that puts some drama in there. I think Arsenal will be going gung ho, but they do every match. They usually suffocate their opponents because they have the possession of the ball and are always in the opponent's half. But Newcastle already have kind of played in a direction where they want the opponent to have it. They have so much pace with all their players essentially up front, Isak and Murphy and the horrible hair. I can't remember his name, English international, but Ed Gordon. They all have their speed merchants. That's what they're made for. So I really like the setup for Newcastle. I just don't love their situation. I almost said the scenario, mixed it with situation. So situation. I think Newcastle would be my interest here if there wasn't a 2-0 lead hanging over the heads of Newcastle, which A motivates Arsenal, but I don't think that really changes too much. And then also puts Newcastle in a bind where they are playing really conservatively from the start. So I think for that reason, I think I'm more interested in under 2 3/4. Though certainly Arsenal will be looking to score as many goals as possible to try to advance without extra time. But we'll see what happens in that matchup. I do think again, like I said, with no aggregate score, I think Newcastle's on my card as a home underdog, but it's probably going to be off the card based on how this all sets up. Moving next to Liverpool, a 2-goal favorite at home to Tottenham, totals 3 3/4. She's all the way to over. And Tottenham are plus 220 to advance, 100 US wins you 220. Liverpool to advance are 280, minus 280, so 280 US to win 100. Liverpool favored, though Tottenham won the first round of the EFL Carabao Cup. And that puts them in a really great position. 1-0 at home was probably one of the more surprising results for Tottenham, and is honestly maybe keeping their personnel in positions or their leadership in places of power. We know Daniel Levy will stick around, but we'll see about the rest of the team, management, all that sort of stuff. So in terms of this number, Liverpool 2-goal favorites. So at a minimum, they must get a goal ahead of Tottenham to send this to extra time. By pushing the spread to 2-goal favorite, that means that Liverpool, if they win in advance, they might be celebrating at the final whistle, and that would offer a really nice push on Tottenham if they only lose by 2 goals in this matchup. So 2-0, 3-1, 4-2. I don't think we probably see many more opportunities than that. The difference here, I think, is Tottenham are really just, they've struggled so much in the English Premier League that I think they're putting everything they can into this competition. Liverpool, certainly at home at Anfield, are a scary, scary beast. And I imagine that they will be very hyped for this one, though certainly their Premier League is probably number one on their list. Champions League, which they finished in first position, or at least entered into the last match day that way. That's also very important, but they have a bye there, which is essential. I think we see Tottenham trying to hold on to their lead as long as possible. The problem is their defense isn't set up that way. So I don't really know what the answer is for Tottenham and what they do here. I think the 2 goals of insurance is really nice, but also if Tottenham, and as we've seen in cup competitions more so than domestic leagues, is that if Tottenham end up going behind and then they are potentially on the brink of elimination, that 2-0 deficit could very easily turn into 3-0 when Tottenham are throwing everything forward, goalkeeper included. Yes, those things are things that might not happen and something you could certainly dismiss as potentially bad luck when it occurs, but that would be a really scary combination, and I don't know that I want much to do with that one, I gotta say. So I think for English Premier League, or I guess Inglaterra continent decision, I think my biggest interest in for this episode at least, and potentially as an ultimate best bet end of show, I think it's Newcastle Arsenal under 2 3/4 goals at the current price. I don't think I want much to do with Liverpool Tottenham because there's a lot of ways that could go. Um, We'll now move on. I'm going to make sure to check, see if I got any comments. Of course, those of you that are live, feel free to throw something in the chat, and I will display it whenever I see it. We'll now move to the Spanish La Liga, and that's where, or the Copa del Rey, more appropriately, though I think it's only top division, Primera División teams at this point, but we'll go through that in a second. Okay, we'll start with Atletico Madrid. This is a Tuesday afternoon game, recording this, and it kicks off in about 2 hours. Hopefully, any of you that are looking for some advice on this one will either subscribe to patreon.com/real_G Warner or grab my package at pregame.com, or maybe you'll listen to this by the time it gets up because I will upload it as soon as I finish. But we'll start with Atletico Madrid, a 1 1/4 goal favorite to Getafe at home. Total is 2 1/4, and it is juiced more to the under. Atleti they've got a big week ahead of them. They have Real Madrid on the weekend, on the road on the other side of Madrid. And we'll certainly hear the rumors that Atleti are working class and Real Madrid are the rich boys, blah, blah, blah. And they always have a special desire for that one. As for Atletico Madrid hosting Getafe in the Copa del Rey. Of course, Champions League still up in the air for Atleti, and so they're playing really well and competing to also win La Liga. Getafe, on the other hand, are one of those teams that are just playing to stay in the league. They've done fairly well. They've had a really good 2025, including a goalless draw this weekend with Sevilla. I think at this point, this is the competition for them. This is where they can get a trophy. It's a long way to go, and they got a really tough draw going on the road to Atleti, but it's not impossible. Atletico Madrid are currently minus 520, so 520 US to win 100 to advance. Getafe 100 wins you 375. All lines quoted courtesy of BetOnline or Sportsbetting.ag, sister sites. If you have one account at one of the places and haven't opened one, made a first time deposit at the other, follow the link in the podcast description or actually just DM me at the real underscore G Warner across any social media platform, and I will get you a fresh link to make sure you get some free money from the casinos. In terms of the total here, 2 and 3 or 2 and a quarter, 2.25. I think we see a low scoring match. I mean, it's a big number for Getafe matches, as we saw Sevilla and Getafe go goalless this weekend. But I think the final closing total was 1 and 3 quarters. We're not going to see a lot of goals unless we do, but I wouldn't expect we will. I think Getafe, no matter what the score is here, they're going to try to keep this as low scoring as possible. I think Atleti are potentially a little bit focused on Real Madrid this weekend, and you could see some substitutions that indicate that, or maybe even a starting lineup. The only difference is I expect we'll see Robin Lenormand in this matchup as he's suspended for the Real Madrid match this weekend. That's a better center back for Atleti, formerly of Real Sociedad, that wouldn't be playing this matchup most likely, getting ready for the weekend. So that's better for defense, better for the under 2 and a quarter. And that's my biggest interest in this matchup. I lean to the goal and a quarter of insurance. Anything above insurance goal, I do like on the soccer pitch. I just don't think I trust Getafe to score. Move to Wednesday of Leganés hosting Real Madrid. Currently, Leganés a 1 goal underdog in a Madrid suburb. Total is 2 and 3 quarters in this one, juiced really heavily to under. And two advanced numbers, Leganés 100 wins you 360, Real Madrid $500 to win 100. So potentially, and I guess on the road makes sense, Real Madrid a slightly smaller favorite than Atleti, but Leganés have been playing really well. I mean, they had an incredible Friday night, ridiculous red card given by a horrible La Liga referee, a young one at that, and VAR just sitting in their hands asleep in the Madrid room, just down the street, it seemed. But shouldn't be surprised. The Liga continues to do that, and I guess it's just something you need to bake in if you're betting this sport. Disappointing, of course, but I just expect it's going to happen, and maybe things will improve. With that said, Leganés currently a 1 goal underdog. They've been playing really well. Beat Atletico Madrid a couple weekends ago. Got a goalless draw at Athletic Club back to back, and then had 2 penalties saved in stoppage time to lose their match on Friday night, but went down to 10 men earlier in the match and hung on and really did, I thought, an admirable job defending, but deserved better. But honestly, they should finish their penalties. Pretty tough to get Real Madrid at home, though at home would certainly be the way to play it if you ever could design it that way. And Real Madrid have Atletico Madrid this weekend, as just mentioned. So all those things kind of push in a direction towards Leganés. I do like the full goal of insurance, but I think as with most times, if I'm betting a team, I don't expect to score much against Real Madrid, and I expect them, or if I like the side, I'll generally like the total as well. So I like under 2 and 3 quarters there in that matchup. Certainly, Real Madrid have been hot lately, scored a bunch of goals on the road at Stade Brestois in Champions League, and then, of course, did what they do on weekends to Espanyol. But ultimately, the Vinny Jr., Rodrigo, and Kylian Mbappe combination just hasn't worked very well this year. I'm not sure that it'll always be that way, but Leganés are going to do everything they can to try to keep this as low scoring as possible, and something that points to under. Moving to Thursday, Real Sociedad hosting Osasuna, having just played each other in the reverse home in Pamplona for Osasuna's El Sadar versus Real Sociedad in San Sebastian. Real Sociedad 3/4 goal favorite, more juice on Osasuna, totals 2 and a quarter, juice all the way to under. Real Sociedad 1 to 3 odds, so $300 to win 100. If you want them to advance at home, Osasuna 100 wins you 235. So Osasuna, they're a very different team away from home, have been for a long time. I think ultimately Real Sociedad are much better, and they're going to control this game, especially in their home stadium. But Osasuna is not far. Pamplona should send a bunch of fans to San Sebastian for this matchup. I don't know if they do more tickets than a usual home La Liga match, but still, I think we see Real Sociedad continue to control games but struggle to score. We've seen that over and over again. I think in the past few seasons, especially after they had a great Champions League run and won a group with Inter Milan back when there were four-team groups so long ago, just 1 year ago. But I think my biggest interest here is under 2.25. I think I trust that more than Osasuna. Osasuna can certainly find goals, but they seem rather fortunate every time they get them. So I'll lean to under 2.25 in that Thursday matchup. Last but not least, in the quarterfinals of the Spanish Copa del Rey, we have Valencia, a 1.25 goal underdog at home with slightly more juice on Barcelona. Away, totals 3.25, juice all the way to under. As for two advanced numbers, Valencia 100 win you $383 at BetOnline or Sportsbetting.ag. Barcelona to advance $535 will win you 100. So pretty big favorite Barcelona, biggest I think on the mantle, just ahead of Atletico Madrid, then Real Madrid, and then last but not least Real Sociedad in terms of the favorites. But Valencia 1.25 goal underdogs, so they are not scoring goals. They got smashed by Barcelona 7-1 a couple weekends ago. I think we see Valencia's attempt at that high line to be thrown out the window, and they're going to play as defensively as they can. Can Valencia score? That's the biggest question if you're backing their side. I think it's gonna be hard to see that, and I think the total matches and totals, excuse me, the cup matches, I think generally play tight. So we see the underdogs. I think a lot of times we see the big upsets from the lower tier divisions and such, but a lot of times that's from weaker teams in the top divisions in each league, or teams that have maybe other competitions they're worried about, or a big match in the weekend. In this case, Barcelona will, they'll be going for this Copa del Rey. They need every dollar they can, and every advance they have, and every additional ticket they can sell gets them closer to getting out of bankruptcy jail, or whatever we call it in La Liga, bankruptcia or something like that. But I think Valencia, they're in the relegation fight. I would imagine if there's anything, yes, you could potentially gain some confidence from a good performance against Barcelona, but I would think that Valencia have certainly their eyes focused upon trying to stay in the top Premier Division in Spain, much more than a Copa del Rey run. But you never know. I think for that reason, I'm more interested in under 3.25 than I am in Valencia, especially because I feel like Valencia, trusting them to score goals, is I think more limited than potentially seeing a few goals from Barcelona instead defending for their lives for 90 minutes. So my biggest interest there is I think the under 3.25. A lot of unders are on my list for Spain in this weekend. As for a best bet, I think I'm most interested in the under 2.25. Getafe and Atletico Madrid starts in a couple hours, so you might want to get on that as soon as possible. Move next to the Italian Coppa Italia, and we'll start on Tuesday with Atalanta hosting Bologna. We have two matches in this window. The rest of the quarterfinal, I think, is being played at a later date, two other matches. But we'll start Atalanta, half a goal favorite at home to Bologna. All the juice on Bologna. Totals 2.5, juice all the way to under. To advance, Atalanta minus 185, Bologna plus 160. So certainly much smaller favorite, even on a home team in Atalanta here. I question that a little bit. Atalanta didn't play great this weekend, had a good draw, equalizing twice on the road to Barcelona in Champions League. And they do have, of course, other Champions League concerns coming up as they are in the playoff round. But Bologna were eliminated, though, put up a really great fight with two straight wins to close out their, I think, maybe first Champions League campaign ever, or at least first in a while. And I feel like Bologna is getting a lot of respect here. I'm a little bit surprised by that. I think that indicates we might not see the best Atalanta lineup. Lineups are due out in about 30 minutes. So we'll see what those look like, and I will guide you through it. If you want to check me out, patreon.com/real_G Warner, and you'll get all my plays, leans, write-ups, everything right up to the second if you download notifications. But Atalanta are a really great team. I don't want to fade them with Bologna. I think if anything, under 2.5 is my interest here, but that is a shaky one at best. Moving to Wednesday, we have AC Milan hosting Roma. As I got the scarf, there we go. It's a little hot in here. I don't know how people do this, but whatever. I needed something. Milan currently quarter goal favorites at home with all the juice. Totals 2.5, juice slightly more to over, and to advanced number Milan minus 168, Roma plus 138. So a lot of respect for the road teams in this round of the Coppa Italia. I'm a little bit surprised by that, but as I said, a lot of these Copa matches, cup matches, do play tight. Milan have been really struggling. They sacked the manager. Roma sacked two, so who knows what advantages there are there. But Roma coming off a really tough match this weekend with Napoli, whereas Milan had the Derby de Madrileño or whatever it's called, Manolina. I can never remember the name, but a home match with Inter Milan, their hated rivals. So a lot of tired legs potentially going this one, as neither team were able to rest. Though Roma did rotate a fair amount for their weekend matchup, coming off of a must-win Europa League game. That could mean that Roma are in better position rest-wise. They've been so bad away from home. I think we see Roma try to dictate tempo here, and that means trying to not score a lot of goals. Though ultimately, I don't know that Roma is really that desperate to play defense. I think they're more just a potentially bigger club in Italy that have, and honestly in the Europa League, that have struggled to dominate competition because they can't score efficiently, and that's why we've seen Roma have low-scoring games. With that said, I think Milan are in a really tough kind of figuring themselves out middle of the season with Conceição coming in, father of Juventus player, formerly of FC Porto in Portugal. I think there's a lot of ways this game could go. I just think ultimately we find in Coppa Italia some low scoring matches. So I like under 2.5, and I lean to Roma as a Portugal underdog as well. So for the ultimate best bet, I got to nominate one from the Coppa Italia before we move to France. And I will start and I'll go in, I will throw in. I'll go Roma quarter goal underdog. Scary to say the least, but I think that's probably the safest that I feel about as we're recording this live on Tuesday, February 4th. Moving now to the Coupe de France, as I feel like I had these numbers up a little bit earlier, and I feel like I'm a little late, unfortunately, on a couple matches that just kicked off right before I signed on. But the last match on Tuesday, we have Le Mans hosting PSG. PSG 2.5 goal favorites with more juice on Le Mans, a home team in a lower division. Totals 3.5 and is juiced pretty heavily to over right now. PSG dominated Stuttgart on the road in a really tough must-win scenario. I don't know necessarily that I am forever afraid of them, but I am with a weaker team. PSG's their motivation's always testable, confusing, and uncertain. But at this point, I don't think I want much to do with playing a lower division team against the strongest team in France, and they've got depth for days. Arguable. I mean, if you're playing against them, either under or the underdog, then you're just kind of expecting PSG to show up without interest. And we saw plenty of interest in their multiple goals late in the match to cover the spread, despite taking a big 3-1 lead, I think it was, against Stade Brestois in a Champions League team that moved on in the competition. Moving to Wednesday, we have a bunch of matches. This is a round of 16. We have Strasbourg hosting Angers. Currently, Strasbourg, 3/4 goal favorites with all the juice on Angers. Totals 2.5, juice more to the under. Strasbourg, sneakily, after basically giving away a bunch of matches because they're so naive, have had a really good run heading into this past weekend. And Angers, a newly promoted side, have actually played really well themselves, too. I think I'm more interested in Angers as a goal scoring team and play you tough, but ultimately try to outscore you. I think that's exactly how Strasbourg want to play as well. That doesn't really jive with my kind of cup theory, but I think my biggest interest is Angers, a 3/4 goal underdog on the road at Strasbourg. Next, we move to Toulouse hosting Guingamp. Currently, Toulouse a 1 goal favorite with slightly more juice on the visitor. Totals 2.5 and the juice slightly more to over. Toulouse have been really, really struggling, so I don't know necessarily what to think about them, though certainly have had really great success in the Coupe de France in the past. I'm not sure I'm a believer in a lower division team, but I feel like Toulouse have been really struggling. So I think my interest is in Guingamp, a 1 goal underdog. No idea if I pronounced that right. Probably not. I'll move next to Stade Briochin hosting OGC Olympique Gymnastique Club de Nice. Currently, Stade Briochin, a 1.5 goal underdog at home. All the juice on Nice. Totals 2 3/4, just all the way to over. Again, please forgive my French pronunciations. I think I took it in middle school for a few years, alternating with Spanish. So clearly I was lost in that department, if you haven't seen me as lost just yet. Right now, I think Nice is a big road favorite. Makes sense for a lower division team. It's hard for me to gauge. And move next to Caen hosting Dives Kabul. Currently, Caen a 1 goal favorite at home. Totals 2.5, just more to the under. Caen, they're in a lower division. Dives Kabul, I don't even know where the heck they are. And if there's a if there's a hyphen in the name, it usually means lower division in France. So no interest really in that one. And then last but not least, Beaujon Jallieu hosting Reims, currently a 2.25 goal favorite. Are Reims away from home to a lower division side? Totals 3.25, juice more to the over. Stade de Reims are a good goal scoring team. They should be able to do that against lower division teams. Of course, are we then expecting to win by 3 goals? Because that's what this spread is asking. Hard for me to say. I don't really know on that one. So for my best bet from the Coupe de France, as I look forward to potentially the bigger teams being around, so I have some sort of insight, I'll take the Angers side, 3/4 of a goal underdog on the road at Strasbourg. Last but not least, we'll go to the German DFB Pokal as we have a match today, and then we also have a couple coming up later in a few weeks from now. We'll start with Stuttgart hosting Augsburg. Currently, Stuttgart 1.25 goal favorite. All the juice on Augsburg away. Total is 3. Juiced pretty heavily to under right now. To advance, Stuttgart minus 375, Augsburg plus 285. So 100 to win 285 on Augsburg, 375 to win 100 on Stuttgart. Stuttgart have a big crowd. They've been fighting to try to get into the Champions League knockout rounds. They didn't make it. I think being close is a good season for them, considering how they were fighting relegation so many years. The problem is that Stuttgart are playing a ton more matches, and it's really shown. Though they've been, I think, pretty healthy in their striker department, with Denise Undav actually not starting this past weekend. But that didn't go well for Stuttgart as they lost at home to a Borussia Mönchengladbach side that hadn't won a road game in a Kuhn's age. That's probably not appropriate to say. I don't know if that's allowed. My bad if it isn't. In a long time, if I had editing purposes, I'll get the interns on that. But the Augsburg, they had a ridiculous over on 2 corner kicks they hadn't scored from all season 2 weeks ago. Last weekend had a predictable another return to a low scoring match. I think the push on 3 is really important here because Augsburg are going to give Stuttgart the ball, and Stuttgart want the ball. They want to possess it, but Augsburg are going to try to set some traps. I think I'm less concerned with the Stuttgart offense at this point, though they've certainly got some good players. I like Augsburg as a 1.25 goal underdog, and I also like under 3 in that matchup. Moving to Wednesday, I guess the only 2 matches of the DFB Pokal quarterfinals, as the other 2 will be coming up later. But we buy Leverkusen a 1.75 goal favorite with more juice to FC Köln, a Schweizer Liga second division team. Currently, Köln trying to fight their way back into the Oberhausen. Totals to 3.25, juice pretty heavily to under right now. And Cologne to me have been more of an attacking team from what I've followed so far in the Schweizerliga, which is not a ton. But Bayer Leverkusen, they have been defending holders of this trophy of the Pokal, but ultimately they have not really been great, I don't think, and have been struggling at holding leads. That makes a big favorite a little bit risky, and certainly makes the total, if you're looking to play under, very scary as well. I'm not sure the Cologne are going to go in and just try to batten up the hatches immediately, but that probably is the most intelligent strategy for them, and try to keep this as low scoring and as close as possible and potentially steal a win late. Stuttgart have certainly, or excuse me, Bayer Leverkusen have certainly been liable and open for that. So that might be the way to do it. I think my biggest interest and my best bet from the DFB Pokal, I'll go Stuttgart Augsburg under 3 goals as my best bet in that one. Now it's time for the ultimate best bet. Before we get all the way into it, I want to check to see if there are any comments in here. If you want to leave a 5-star review, please do so on Apple Podcasts or on Spotify if you're listening there. And say something about wanting a props episode, and I'll try to get _Schnicker to get off baby duties and get on with me and try to go through some maybe DFS angles, or potentially just I'm not doing the Gatorade. I'm not falling for that again after a huge line movement last year on purple, and I think it came out red or something like that. Other than that, the NFL Super Bowl podcast is out with _Schnicker. Recorded the college basketball podcast with the Need for Seeds college basketball podcast with Big East Ben. That's out on the pregame.com. RJ Bell's dream preview feed as they grabbed us for this season. Of course, if you'd like our podcast to come wherever you'd like it, I'm happy to put it on other places. And then it's time to, I guess, get into this video portion so I can get something up on the social medias really, really soon. I don't know if I have anything else to plug, but we'll be doing a normal, as usual, per usual soccer podcast coming up this week. Oh, I do want to shout out new YouTube subscribers. Thank you for coming in. If you could I don't know what more you can do than subscribe, maybe comment or something like that. If you could leave a review on YouTube, I'm not sure that's allowed. But thank you to Billy Franklin and also Big Protein. I don't know if that was your birth name, but if it was, kudos to your parents, or I guess maybe whey proteins to your parents. Pretty good run, good name there. Thank you for coming in. I think we only need like 9 million more YouTube subscribers for ads. So it's going to be ad free for a long time. So if you're subscribed there or like to watch there, like the millennials or probably the Gen Zers or even the TikTok generation, thank you for support there at the real underscore G Warner. Also, this video will be going on YouTube at the real underscore G Warner, plus on Instagram if you want the 1 minute fix. As for new Patreon subscribers, we had a big run in, and I appreciate all of you. The re-uppers, thank you for coming in, especially as we get into February with the NCAA tournament coming up very soon. We'll be going nuts with college basketball prep and tournament bracket pool prep as well. As, I'd love to be a resource for you. Would love to play in any competition as well. Understand if you don't want to compete against me, but I think my Kentucky pick last year winning the title probably makes you feel a little bit more safe. In terms of recent subscribers, David Racy, Chris Pendergast, Texas Preston, very interesting name, and also Will Bond. Thank you all for coming in. Steven Subak, I think I shouted out before, but thanks for your continued support. Of course, all the other Patreon subscribers that have been around for a while, keeping my lights on or keeping my Watch ESPN subscribed. It really is probably more accurate. Thank you so much for coming in and staying with me as long as you have. Any comments, questions, things you'd like improved there, please feel free to slide in my DMs or comment. Would love it to be more of a one-to-one conversation rather than me just pushing everything out there. But it's time for the ultimate best bet, so let's get into it. Gotta make sure I have my record there and available, and it is. So let's go. Hey, this is real underscore G Warner on Instagram, Patreon, Twitter, and on YouTube. We are 28-9, 76% so far year to date. And our best bet, I basically go through each of the bettable options in the European soccer world that I follow. I pick my favorite from each. On today's English, EFL Cup portion of the show, I went with Newcastle under 2 3/4 goals in their second leg at home to Arsenal. In Copa del Rey in Spain, I went Getafe under 2 1/4 goals. In Coppa Italia, I went Roma, a quarter goal underdog as I wear the scarf. The Coupe de France, I went with Angers, a 3/4 goal underdog. And the DFB Pokal, I went under 3 in Football Club Augsburg visiting Stuttgart. But as for the ultimate best bet on this episode, you can grade this to try to improve on that 28-9 year to date. I'm going to go with that Augsburg Stuttgart under 3 goals. Love that extra push on 3. I think it's extremely valuable in a very close cup tie, as we'll see in the DFB Pokal. And that'll do it for this episode. Thank you all for tuning in, and I will see you all in the next episode, whatever sport you're looking to follow. Leave a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts and on Spotify. And of course, hit the subscribe button on YouTube, Instagram, wherever you're getting this.